I will be walking through my Sigma workbook in response to this week's Workout Wednesday challenge. First of all, let's take a look at the original challenge itself. The topic this week is custom context menu. What that looks like in reality is once our user click on an object on the visualization, they can click on this more option menu and select between each menu item to trigger an action that can be taking them to a new page, a new model open up, or triggering something else. In this case, once we click on the regional details, that will pop up this new model with a pivot table that break down the underlying sum of profit, now displayed by region and month of date. We can switch between the segment control here, switch it to product family. Now we can see the pivot table are pivoting the rows by product family, as before we were breaking down that by region. Now let's see how we can bring it to life in practice. Here's my solution. Let's start with the data page. There is only one source table that is connected to the Snowflake connection that Sigma provided with their Flex Electronics sample dataset. On my control panel, I only have one table here, but this table is essential. I named it the master table. The only edit I had here is one additional columns, and now I can't move it. There we go. At the end of this table, we have a column with an if this, then that logic. Basically, this column is reflecting what you saw earlier in that pivot table when you switch between product name and store region. That pivot table row will automatically update to the category you selected. This is a pretty simple if statement. If that segmented control is configured or selected to product family, then use this column to give me the value from the product family column in this table. If that segmented control is selected to store region, then use this column to return me the value from the store region column in this table. On the dashboard, we have basically three major elements here. One is the title, two is the control panel with two filters. I added the region filter here as well, just to offer that clarity in visualization, because usually the stacked bar charts are much harder for user to make comparisons between different categories. Now they can switch between regions and offer a more succinct answer to their question. This date filter is reflected in the dynamic title. Now the date filter is configured to this year. Let's see if we can make this to year to date, which is the beginning of this year to today. Then the title will automatically update the dates here to match the start of the date control and the end of the date control. The two dates here, start and end, are achieved by two formula. The start date, we are truncating the date itself. I want to display the day of the date. I don't want to see the time of the date. And on the second part here, this DB control date, I'm referring to the control ID of this date control. This dot start basically is an argument saying I want the start of this control. Now you can follow the same logic to configure the end date. Once again, we are using the truncate date function. I want the day of the date, not the time of the date. And once again, we are referring to the control ID of the date control here. And I only want the end of this date control date. That's how we configured the start and end date of this title. And now let's try if our context menu actually worked. We click on something, drop down, and now you see I have this show context selection and an email division lead. Here I'm just showcasing how this context menu can be used in different ways. For example, you might be thinking, well, if I'm just trying to open up a new model, why would I go through this context menu rather than simply just adding like an action on select that will pop up that new model to me? Here, it is actually beneficial when you have different actions that you want to trigger, and then you want to leave that decision of which action you want to trigger back to the user. For example, here we can give user two actions that they can possibly trigger. One is to show contact. Two is to email division lead as you find certain issues as you continue in the analysis. So they can click on this option and trigger an email plugin to send an email to their division lead. For the purpose of this demonstration, let's see how this show context function operates. Let's try to show context based on product family. Now we are popping up this new model with a pivot table that breaks down the profit, the sum of profit by product family on the rows and month of date in the columns. We can click on store region to switch that pivot table row into store regions. And as we can see, the cells in this pivot table are all conditionally formatted. The darker it is, the higher the profit it is. And once again, this automatic switch is achieved by the additional column I added in this control panel table that relies on the if this then that logic to parse basically the segmented control that we were selecting between to see what that value is selected to and gave me the respective column in the table. All right, that's it for now. This is Stanley on Data. I will see you in the next one. I hope you like this and have a great day for now.